What is up, everybody? Tomorrow we are going on our first bike camping trip of the season, so I need to get a bike ready. I decided I want to ride the Gunnar. I rode to my parents' house today to get a bag that I had on the e-bike. My dad has the e-bike that I was given to review for the channel, and I had the Zeitgeist on there, so I wanted to ride over there and grab that, because what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to use the setup I usually use on my drop bar gravel bike on my more ATB sweep bar bike, my Gunnar. So I usually, when I use the Gunnar, I put a front rack on it and I ride with some panniers, and I'm probably still going to do that for our bigger trips this summer, our bike tours. The thing is, I kind of want to test out this other idea of using 2 Zeitgeists and a frame bag on this bike, because I've done some more off-road bike packing trips with my buddy Dylan where we've hit mountain bike trails, and I really didn't like the way the rack and panniers felt for those kind of trips. And then also when we did Michigan and very sandy terrain, I felt like the weight on the front end really buried myself in the sand, and I noticed how Aaron could kind of float over stuff without as much weight on the front where I couldn't. On the roads and on gravel, this bike handles great with weight on the front end, but I just want to try out the other setup to see if it'll work. There's not going to be any considerable off-road on this trip, so this is just kind of another way to test it. So kind of a hybrid setup between the two. The other thing we have going on is tomorrow night it's going to clear off and drop down to 42 degrees. That's going to be pretty cold for me for camping, so I also need to see if I could fit everything to be warm enough onto that setup. So that's what I'm going to do, going to get that going. And if any of you have been following along with the channel, I have not ridden the Gunnar at all now for I don't know how many weeks, but it's because when I was out at Gunk's Not Dead, the rear axle and the wheel broke, pushed into the free hub and broke the free hub as well. Velocity was great about it. They warrantied it. They sent a replacement axle that was steel. The axle in there was aluminum. So apparently this is not, I'm probably not the first person to have this problem. And they also sent a new free hub. So all I had to do was pay Dirty River the labor to get this bike fixed. So basically, while I had the bike down, it also needed a new front chain ring. So I pulled the cranks and put that on. Just got the chain back on here. Edmund helped me with that. And so now I am ready to get the bags on this bike, and then we are going to pack up. I'll talk about a little bit what I'm bringing on this trip. I always kind of do one of these videos, so this is not going to be anything revolutionary if you've already seen what I do on this channel, but if you're interested in a gear, nerdy bike check thing, here we go. I've been asked a lot why I leave the cables so long on my bikes. This is why. For bags. So I have the room to get the bags I want on here. I've never put a bag this big on the front, so we'll see how that works out right now. So I've never had the Swift Zeitgeist on sweep bars before. I had a couple spacers on the bars on my rally, but the reason I do that is so I have the real estate for the light and just to be able to ride with my hands in the tops. I don't really ride with my hands here on this bike. I ride either in, what I've called the hooks or here, but the reason I kept it is because the way this is going to work out with the stem, it gives me a little bit of space. The other thing I always do too is I put 3 spacers down here on the front, and that just kind of keeps the bag a little more upright. And I do feel like this is going to work out with the cables. We'll have to see, because I do like to use these side pockets, but we'll see what it looks like when it's loaded, because right now it's empty, but so far so good. Another thing I've done is I do have like a piece of wood taped to the plastic liner of this thing, and it gives the bag a little more structure. So when it hits these spacers here, it doesn't collapse and kind of fold in around, which I really hate. So the plastic that gives these bags some rigidity is nice, but I find that it still is better off being a little bit reinforced. So this bag is also a Swift Industries Zeitgeist, but it's just the Camp and Go Slow version. So the bag is a different material, where the front one is X-Pack, and these are, I can't remember the name, whatever the woven nylon is, and then it has that Camp and Go Slow rattlesnake finish on it. So again, I use spacers here, and the reason I use spacers against the seat tube is it keeps the bag from hitting against the back of my leg. The other thing, a trick that Aaron had showed me when we were in Michigan, my bag was rocking and it would actually hit the tire. That won't happen because I still have the fenders on this bike. But the thing is, I still like it not to rock as much and not, be as noisy and just more secure when you're riding, especially on off-road, is instead of using the straps that come with it, using a thick fillet strap so you could just make it way more tighter and secure than like the cordage that I use, whatever you call these kind of straps on the head tube, which is fine for the head tube. All right, so the bags are on the bike. The only difference between what I would have done on the Rally and what I do on this bike is the frame bags. So I have this Frost River wax canvas leather strap frame bag that I usually use on the Rally. Nice thing is the Rally has a bigger center triangle and that fits my tent poles. On this bike, I have a Swift frame bag. I don't believe it will fit my tent poles, so we might need to come up with a solution that has them strapped onto the back of this guy somewhere, or maybe it's a solution where I'm strapping them across the handlebars. The only thing that's annoying about that is when you need to get in the bags, it might be an issue. But what I usually do is have one of the bags all sleeping stuff, so you're not undoing it until you're actually camping anyways. I don't know what's going on with this gimbal. I am so bad at using the Pocket 3. Edmund, are you going to help? Oh, yeah. Get in there. I guess the other difference is I do run the jack the rack on this bike, and I'm not going to try and install it onto this one. But I do feel like this bag is going to sit upright on here. We'll see when it's all packed down with gear. First things first, going to load up the essential sleep system, my tent. So this is a tent, ground cloth, tent poles, rain fly. Here I have my pillow, my inflatable mat, and then here I have a sleeping bag liner because it's going to be chilly, and the sleeping bag. My sleeping bag is synthetic, and when I was first getting into bike packing, I asked some people who were experts on down versus synthetic, and they kind of scared me away from the down. With the maintenance and the fact that it could get wet and then it doesn't keep you warm, blah, 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 and then you need to, just take care of it more. I wish I had gone with down, to be honest. When I bike pack in the summer or bike tour, I just bring a down quilt. It's not even a bike packing, camping specific one. It's basically a blanket, and that's enough for me. And what I do is I just throw my liner over my air mattress like a sheet, and that's what I do. But 42 degrees, that's not going to be enough. I'm going to need my sleeping bag, and it just takes up so much more room. So I'm not the kind of I'm not the kind of person who just because I made that little mistake is just going to go buy an expensive down bag. Maybe I will eventually. If there's someone watching this who wants to sponsor one for me, that would be great. But yeah, I'm not going to, so I will figure it out. And I always say this too, one of the annoying things about doing an overnighter on the bike is you still need almost all the same gear as if you're doing a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because your sleeping stuff is what takes up most of the room. And since it's going to be cold, even though I only really need clothes for 2 rides and 1 night, I still need to bring warmer stuff, so it's going to really fill out the space. So let's see how this goes. So this is pretty cool and unexpected. I actually did get my tent poles into the frame bag. I had to kind of slip them in one at a time and like stretch the cordage because the zipper on the Swift bag does not go all the way. So they just barely fit. And yeah, that was almost my limiting factor. I didn't think I was going to get them in because of that, but I did. So now I could maybe put one of my Model Infinity tools to tighten them up to like the top and then have space in the bottom of the bag, or the opposite. I think it'll have to be top, but I don't know. I'll play around with them a little bit. So my sleeping bag did come with a compression bag thing, but it's actually a pain with like 4 straps and all that. So what I do is I just stuff it into these waterproof Sea to Summit bags. The compression bag is not waterproof either. So even though there's not really a chance of rain on this trip, this is just always what I end up doing since my bags are not waterproof, and I definitely want my sleeping bag to stay dry. And someone's going to say, well, why don't you just get waterproof bags? Because I didn't, and I don't have them. So I just use these. They're not expensive. They're super lightweight. They're super thin. And this is how I do it. So in the back here, I got the sleeping bag, which takes up almost the entire thing, the rain fly, my sleeping pad, my pillow, in the liner. So we still have all this tent material to get in there, which folds up pretty small, and tent stakes, which will probably go into the frame bag. And then my chair. I know that might seem frivolous to some people, but for anyone who has a bad back, when I sit around the fire, I need a chair. I cannot risk the idea of having to just sit there crisscross applesauce, as the kids say. So this is a new purchase for this year. This is a headlamp. I have always just used my bike light around the campsite, but there's been times where we've been setting up after dark. That won't be the case probably tomorrow. But then what I find myself is trying to set up with a bike light in my mouth, far less than ideal. So I finally sprung for a headlamp. This is Deploy Black Diamond, or is Deploy just one of the buttons? I don't know. Black Diamond headlamp. I got it from REI. I use that thing they give you at the end of the year. So tent towel and camping chair in the front bag, Zeitgeist. So now we just need to see some warm clothes for sleeping, and then a little bit of a change for the second day of riding. So here's kind of what I have left. Extra socks, wool boxers for the next day, extra t-shirt, bringing a wool cap just for the morning or the evening. This is my down jacket, packs up pretty small. And then I still need, I'll be bringing my GoPro and a couple cameras. Those usually stay on my person. Saddle cover, and then bike lights, bike tools, and there'll always be a couple extra batteries for me. I'm going to put those on, but I'm like really confused because I feel like I'm so overpacked. And again, I'm just thinking if it was cold riding, which it's not going to be, it's going to be in the 60s, I would also be needing gloves. And I usually don't like to ride with my phone in my pocket. So I'm a little confused as to why I've done like a full week with 2 Zeitgeists and a frame bag on my rally, but right now I feel so overpacked. And it might just be that usually we're now touring in the summer, and so like that quilt just takes up so much less space. But again, I have done it before I had the quilt, and I've done it with way more clothes. And again, if there was a chance of rain and I was going to bring a rain jacket or a rain cape. So I don't know. I really need to think about this and why it seems like I have so much stuff on here. So bike is loaded up. Pretty full, Zeitgeist in the back with, like I said, like the sleeping stuff. Frame bag, I put all my bike tools, bike pumps, stuff like that in there. I did realize I broke my tool keg, and so my tools would go down there. That would save me a little space in the bag that I don't have this time. But everything there is in the frame bag, and that's kind of pretty much filled. And then the front Zeitgeist, there might be a little more room in there because it can expand out pretty well, but that's pretty well full too. The thing I'll have left is what I do with the side pockets is that's where I put stuff I need quick access to. So I do have 4 of those. And on a trip like this, that'll have some riding snacks in there, my bike lock, my keys, my wallets. So wallets, I carry tons of wallets, but I actually don't carry a wallet at all. I just wrap my money around my cards and stuff. But anyways, that's really what does have me thinking. So there's no camp meals on here because I don't need them for this trip. But that's what's making me think if I was going on a trip where I needed them, I would be pretty low on space. Obviously, stuff could be strapped to the outside, but I'm still thinking, why does that need to be the case? Nothing to make coffee, but since I'm traveling with Erin, when me and Erin ride together, since I carry the tent, she carries everything we need to make coffee. That's always been our deal. But again, I'm just kind of thinking, is it just the fact that I've done a couple trips where I carried everything myself lately, and I've been using the rack and pannier, so that just is that much more capacity? It's not a ton because I do use a Zeitgeist in the back and just 2, but then I can strap stuff to the front of the rack. Anyways, this setup, I'm glad now that I really tried this out, because if I do want to use this for some more off-road bike packing and it's going to be a little chilly, I do need to think about this system because I am pretty much maxed out on space and there would be other stuff I would need in here. Like I said, more food, maybe if I needed rain gear. If I'm doing multi-day, I carry like socks. I hate wearing socks over and over again. So I don't know. That's where I'm at. I'm going to try this out. So this trip, like I said, not something crazy. We're doing, I think, about 50 miles tomorrow. We're going to a friend's parents' property. They have this beautiful property. So we're just going to camp out there, maybe even ride into town for dinner and some drinks. And then the next day, I'm not even sure what our plan is yet, but that will be the next video. But when I close out that video, I'll talk about this system and how I felt. And then I would love to hear what you guys think, what you're seeing, what am I missing? One thing that I'm looking at right now while we're talking is I do want to throw a musette onto the bike. That's one thing I always like to bring with me because, say, I want to bring some beers to the fire or some extra supplies, I have leftover food, whatever the case may be. That's where I always like to have something I could throw over my shoulders if it's just going to be for the last couple miles of the trip. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Like I said, a little not so happy about how this is going down. I think it's going to ride great though. So I don't know. Anyways, like I said, we'll wrap this up after the trip, which will be the next video, and I will see you then. Thanks as always for watching. Peace.